To the service of Yizkor. So I invite you to turn to page 540. And in this first part of the service, I'm going to ask, please, that the ushers are passing around stones. In the words of the 10th century poet Yehuda Halevi, "'Tis a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, to hope, to dream, to be and oh, to lose. A thing for fools, this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. And to remember this brings painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love. A holy thing to love what death has touched." I'm going to add, Ben, that you keep a musical undercurrent throughout the service, please. Thank you. Since the beginning of time, Jews have left graves marked with stones. Why stones? Because stones withstand time without withering and fading, like the memories we hold, like the love that we shared, like the lessons they taught us and that we've learned. You may have noticed, and you will notice, 3 bowls of stones when you came in, being passed around now. There are different colors and different textures for the different memories and the different feelings we carry. When the ushers arrive in your row, please choose stones that are right for what you're feeling and what you are remembering today. Take as many as you need for as many people or as many memories as you're holding today. Now, Yizkor is traditionally to remember people that we've loved and lost. And as powerful as those losses are, others among us are mourning other things as well. Whatever they may be, such as the loss of a relationship, the loss of a job, a dream, even a sense of place. This is a space in which we can honor all of our losses. And at the end of this Yizkor service, if you've been here before, this is what we do. We are going to create a communal altar of memory here at the foot of our bima. Here at the end of the service, we will leave our stones as a witness to our memory and our devotion. As they get to your row, please take a stone for each of the people or circumstances you're remembering. There are plenty. So take for whatever or whoever calls you. And as the stones are being distributed, I'd like to invite those members of our congregation who have lost loved ones this year to light the candles of memory. So I invite Nancy Silverman and Brendan Konigsberg to honor the memory of their mother and grandmother, Arlene Marcia Milton Silverman. Lynn Brownstein and Isidore Haviland to honor the memory of their father and grandfather, Joseph Edwin Brownstein. Catherine Hecht and Beth Achenbach to honor the memory of Catherine's mother and Beth's mother-in-law, Jeanette Hecht. Beth Achenbach to honor the memory of her grandmother, Alice Achenbach. Rob Kushner, Jill, Matt, and Lauren, Liz and Ethan, Mimi and Tessa and Saul Kushner, to honor the memory of their father, grandfather, and great-grandfather, Larry Kushner. Jennifer Mentha and Amelie Mentha, to honor the memory of their husband and father, Alian Mentha. John Pin, Karen, Ori, and Ava Pin, to honor the memory of their mother and grandmother, Susan Strauss Pin. Stu Portney, Karen and Hank Portney, to honor the memory of their mother and grandmother, Bernice Portney. Shelley Phillips and Susan Kilgallen, to honor the memory of their mother, Evelyn Malsberg. Kathy Gale, to honor the memory of her husband, James Rothwell. And Jan Rottenberg, to honor the memory of her mother, Millie Rottenberg. Page 541. Let's read together. This is the hour of memory, and this is our house of comfort. Wounded by loss, we retreat from life. Our synagogue gathers us in. Into this place we bring stories and prayers, unanswered questions, tears that need to be shed, lives recollected and carried within us, moments of courage and laughter and pain. This day embraces them all. This place embraces us all. Now the heart opens in sorrow, for we are time's subjects, and all that we love we must lose. So let us hold fast to the love that remains and cherish the light of the sun. Today all of us walk the mourner's path. Together may we find strength. Page 544.
Adonai
582. Had I known you were going, I could have given you at least good speed. But you slipped away so suddenly that I was left standing on the shore watching into that space, not knowing you would never come back. Not till I felt the waters of incoming tide cold about my heart. I do not ask for you again. I know the sea you sail does not touch these shores. I only look for an all-distant all hail, like the white crest of a wave against the horizon, or a signal light flashing once, far against the sky. Sail on, my bright, sturdy mariner. Let out a full sheet to your new winds. Taste the clear spray of your new waters. You were made for flight and swiftness and eternal freedom, and nothing shall weigh you down or call you back to the warm earth, or the shape we knew, or the place that held you so very dear. I've cut the anchor chain that bound you to me, and the great strength of my love and the heavy ache of my loneliness, which might bear upon you and hold you back, I have fashioned into a shining silken fabric to the highest and strongest of your new sails. Page 554. .553. Move to the front of the line, a voice says, and suddenly there is nobody left standing between you and the world to take the first blows on their shoulders. This is the place in books where part 1 ends and part 2 begins, and there's no part 3. The slate is wiped not clean, but like a canvas painted over in white, so that a whole new landscape must be started. Bits of the old still showing underneath, those colors sadness lends to a certain hour of the evening. Now the line of light at the horizon is the hinge between earth and heaven, only visible a few moments as the sun drops its rusted padlock into place. 555. Page 8 in the book. Dear Cynthia, this This is a very beautiful question, and I'm grateful you've asked it. It seems to me that if we love, we grieve. That's the deal. That's the pact. Grief and love are forever intertwined. Grief is the terrible reminder of the depth of our love, and like love, grief is non-negotiable. There is a vastness to grief that overwhelms our minuscule selves. We are tiny, trembling clusters of atoms subsumed within grief's awesome presence. It occupies the core of our being and extends through our fingers to the limits of our universe. Within that whirling gyre, all manner of madnesses exist. Ghosts and spirits and dream visitations and everything else that we in our anguish will into existence. These are precious gifts that are as valid and as real as we need them to be. They are the spirit guides that lead us out of the darkness. I feel the presence of my son all around, but he may not be there. I hear him talk to me, parent me, guide me, though he might not be there. He visits Susie in her sleep regularly, speaks to her, comforts her, but he may not be there. Dread grief trails bright phantoms in its wake. These spirits are ideas, essentially. They are our stunned imaginations reawakening after the calamity. Like ideas, these spirits, they speak of possibility. Follow your ideas, because on the other side of the idea is change and growth and redemption. Create your spirits. Call to them. Will them alive. Speak to them. It is their impossible and ghostly hands that draw us back to the world from which we were jettisoned. Better now, and unimaginably changed. With love, Nick. Page 556.
Adonai yishmorcha mikora, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzeitecha uvorecha. Me'ata me'ata. 'Cause 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 'c
563. I need to talk to my sister. Talk to her on the phone. I mean, just as I used to every morning. In the evening, too, when the grandchildren said a sentence that clasped both our hearts. I called. Her phone rang 4 times. You can imagine my breath stopped. Then there was a terrible telephonic noise. A voice said, "This number is no longer in use." How wonderful, I thought. I can call again. They haven't yet assigned her number to another person, despite 2 years of absence due to death. Eli, Eli. 540.
I pray that these things
never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of my heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart. 559. In my darkness, be a light to me. In my loneliness, help me to find a soul akin to my own. Give me strength to live with courage, and give me courage to draw blessing from life, even in the midst of suffering, to hold fast against the storm, and to smile at a loved one's glance. Page 590. There are 10 strong things. Iron is strong, but fire melts it. Fire is strong, but water quenches it. Water is strong, but the clouds evaporate it. Clouds are strong, but wind drives them away. Wind is strong, but the human body bears it. Human beings are strong, but fear casts them down. Fear is strong, but wine allays it. Wine is strong, but sleep overcomes it. Sleep is strong, but death is stronger. And loving kindness survives death. Page 8 of the Yizkor book. We'll never walk alone.
when you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark.
At the end of the storm is
a
a
golden
Jewish tradition, in its wisdom, teaches that between the world of the living and the world of the dead is a window, not a wall. Yizkor creates a place and time wherein we can open ourselves to that window. In preparing to offer Yizkor prayers today, it's our custom that we take a few minutes, settle in, breathe, and allow your imagination to serve as the vehicle of memory. Closing your eyes may help stir memories. Who are you remembering? Or what? Conjure their presence here. Can you imagine their face or faces before you? Their smile, their smell, how they might carry their body, move their hands. Bring them here. Can you recall the sound of their voice, their words? Feel their presence in this moment, right here. And in your mind, in the depths of your heart, allow a conversation between the two of you to unfold. What needs to be said this year? What needs to be heard? What remains unspoken? Is there forgiveness? Travel together in your mind's eye. We'll be sitting in silence for several minutes for private meditations, your own images, your own conversations. And if you like, some of the texts between 570 and 593. It'll be a good 8 minutes. ready, I invite you to bring your stones to our collective altar of memory. And love, and devotion, and grief. Page 583.
Adonai roi lo exalt bino tesher bitseni al menuchot nafshi yeshovet yachol b'magnei tzedek yachini b'magnei tzedek למען שמו גם כלב מגץ מוות לא יראו כי אתה עמדי תערוך לפניי שולחן נגד צורריי נשענת בת-שמן ראשי כלביה וכתוב חסד מדבוני כל ימי חיי כל ימי חיי ושבתי מבית אדוני לאורך ימים אדוני רואי לא אכסה אדוני רואי לא אכסה.
Please read with me on page 9. Psalm 23, the interpretation. The Holy One is my guide, my life is whole. We journey together over fertile hillsides and rest beside nourishing springs. This is my spirit ever renewed, for my guide leads me down paths of fullness. Even when my steps lead into the kingdom of death, I do not fear, for I know you are with me. Your presence, your shelter is a comfort to me. With you, I can set myself aright in the face of deepest sorrow. And soon my joy is filled to overflowing. As I journey on, nothing but kindness and love shall follow until the day I finally return to my source, my destination. I invite us to rise 598, the memorial prayer of El Malei Rachamim.
Adonai hu nachalatam ve'anuach b'shalom al mishkavam v'nomar Amen.
The Mourner's Kaddish on page 606. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba.
Amen.
Amen.
Ve'alma divra chirutei ve'amlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kariv ve'imru. Amen. Yehe shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam ul'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shmei dekudesha brichu. Leila uleila mikol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru.
Amen.
Amen.
Shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen.
Please be seated as we transition into our martyrology section in our book. Exactly 50 years ago today, Yom Kippur, 1973, As millions of Jews were in or getting ready for temple, today on the holiest day of the year, there was a sneak attack on Israel. And though they were outnumbered and unprepared, it only took 19 days for Israel to prevail over the armies of Egypt and Syria, along with the armed forces of Iraq and Jordan, even with the added support from the Soviet Union, Libya, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, and Lebanon. And though Israel made territorial gains, notably in the Sinai Peninsula and the Golan Heights, for a peace treaty, Israel returned the entire Sinai to Egypt. That peace with Egypt still stands. Syria still prefers a state of war. But Israel vowed never, ever, ever again to let down her guard. And today in our martyrology service, we honor the 80th anniversary this year of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising of 1943. So I turn our attention, yes, to page 10.
The ghetto was burning. For days and nights it flamed, and the fire consumed house after house, entire streets. Columns of smoke rose, sparks flew, and the sky reflected a red, frightening glow. Nearby, on the other side of the wall, citizens of the capital strolled, played, and enjoyed themselves. They knew that the Jews were burning. The wind blew smoke and soot from the burning ruins in their direction. Sparks scattered, and now and then a house outside the ghetto would catch fire, but these fires were immediately extinguished. Only in the ghetto, no one hastened to put out the flames, to come to the rescue. Everything was burning, and there was no one to halt the blaze. This eyewitness account describes the beginning of the final tragic chapter of the Warsaw Ghetto. The Warsaw Ghetto, a ghetto like others in some respects, yet a ghetto set aside from other Jewish ghettos by the story of heroism, which marks its end. Ghettos played an important part in the Nazi destruction process. From ghettos, the Nazis reaped three benefits. First, the ghettos served as points of isolation and concentration for purposes of deportation. Second, the ghetto itself served as an instrument of mass murder through starvation and disease. Third, the ghetto served an ideological function. Jews were to act as subhumans. Jews were to survive only as parasites. What better way was there to prove this than to crowd Jews into a ghetto and dehumanize us? Once we Jews were reduced to a level of animals, the Nazis could point and say, "We were right, the Jews are subhuman." At its height, the Warsaw Ghetto had more than 500,000 people crammed into it. At first, everyone felt the loss of human rights and freedom, but eventually three things began to be felt by us. First was the overcrowded conditions. The ghetto area, consisting of 3% of Warsaw's land, was really only suitable for 30,000 people. With these overcrowded conditions, and due to a lack of medicine and reduced physical resistance, disease was rampant. Second, there was little or no heating in the cold Polish winter. Coal was referred to as black pearls. Third, and most of all, we felt the hunger. According to the Nazi commander in Poland, the Jews of Warsaw received only 180 calories per day. Many should have starved to death, and yet not as many of us would die as the Nazis anticipated. Young children, especially young women, would smuggle in food. To eat would become an act of resistance. There is a low rate of suicide in the Warsaw Ghetto. We survived the first hellish year of the Warsaw Ghetto because we decided that our existence as a people will not be destroyed. Individuals may be destroyed, but the Jewish community will live on. By the end of 1942, horrifying news of mass deportations reached Warsaw. This news was carried by the underground press. albeit on the third or fourth page. It was simply too hard to believe, and the first page was reserved for world military developments. By the spring of 1942, the ghetto is on the verge of disaster. We Jews were nervous and in a state of near panic. Everyone had heard of mass deportations, and some Jews had come back with horrifying details. On July 18th, 40 freight cars arrived at the railroad station, the Umschlagplatz. On July 19th, 1942, Hitler issued his resettlement order, and on July 22nd, the eve of Tisha B'Av, the deportations began. 5,000 to 6,000 Jews per day will be deported to Treblinka. By September, 10,000 Jews a day are being deported. By Rosh Hashanah, 310,000 have been deported and only 60,000 remain. On January 18, 1943, the German troops surrounded the ghetto and began to ferret out people for deportation. At this time, the Jewish fighting organization counterattacked near the Umschlagplatz. 50 Germans are killed or were wounded. We Jews suffered heavy losses. But our bold resistance inspires the ghetto. It serves as proof that the Germans could be beaten. Those that remain give our support to the resistance. Who were these Jewish fighters? Most of them were youngsters. The commander, Mordechai Anielewitz, was 23 years old. Mordechai Anielewitz had decided that the question is not whether or not we will die. In his view, everyone would die. The question then was, how shall we die? His answer was that we have decided to die in battle. At that time, he wrote to a friend, "We don't have a moment's rest. We sleep in our clothes at every entrance to the ghetto. We stand guard day and night. We are making final preparations. Soon we shall have to separate ourselves from life and go to the place that no one wants to go. But ours is the correct path, for we have cultivated in our heart the idea of revolt." On the eve of Passover, 80 years ago, the final battle began. After the first day, the Germans, shocked and surprised by the strength of Jewish resistance, withdrew, leaving 200 dead and wounded behind. One survivor later recounted, "We were happy and laughing when we threw our grenades and saw German blood on the streets of Warsaw, which had been flooded with so much Jewish blood and tears. A great joy possessed us. We all knew that we would lose, but nevertheless, we now embraced and kissed one another." On May 18th, Mila 18, Mordechai Anielowitz's bunker, was discovered. He and his comrades took their own lives, committing Kiddush Hashem rather than surrender. When the revolt was over, all that was left was the smoldering ruins of what had once been one of the great Jewish communities of Eastern Europe. The blood-soaked debris of Yiddish and Hebrew books were all that remained of a 1,000-year-old civilization of Jews in Poland. What can be said of this revolt? Hundreds of German soldiers were killed in revenge. The Polish population could see that the Germans were vulnerable, and this tended to encourage their resistance. The revolt had held out longer than against the Nazis than the Poles had when the Germans invaded Poland. We now had a new image of the Jews in the eyes of the non-Jew. We Jews were no longer seen as spineless creatures. Most important, we had a new Jewish self-image. This revolt was the first national organized military struggle of the Jewish people since the Bar Kokhba revolt in 135 CE. After 1,808 years, we Jews were again fighting back. The revolt inspired other revolts among Jews at other ghettos and camps. Perhaps the best comment on the revolt was later made by its leader, Mordechai Anielewitz, in his last letter, wherein he wrote, "The last wish of my life has been fulfilled. Jewish self-defense has become a fact. Jewish resistance and revenge have become actuality. I am happy to have been one of the first fighters in the ghetto. Where will rescue come from?" In 1983, on the 40th anniversary of the Warsaw Revolt, a ceremony took place at the monument in Warsaw's largest Jewish cemetery. After laying a wreath at the foot of Mordechai Anielewitz and his fellow fighters, the American and Israeli delegations withdrew to their places and began to sing the Hatikva, the national anthem of Israel. At that moment, the Polish commander gave the command to the Polish band to play the Polish national anthem and to drown out the Hatikva. But the hope of the Jews and the courage of Mordechai and Yelowitz could not easily be drowned out by a communist-era Polish band. It should be stressed that this event took place during the 40th anniversary, when Poland was still under communist rule. It is doubtful that such an incident would ever take place today. This revolt remains a testimony to our strength and fortitude as Jews. It serves as inspiration to us all as to the depth of commitment that Mordechai had to our people and our heritage, as well as the depth of commitment that we, too, should possess to fight anti-Semitism and all forms of hate.
Thank you. The women of the Warsaw Uprising.
The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising was a courageous last stand against the German occupiers who were systematically murdering the Jews of Europe. On April 19, 1943, 2,000 Germans entered the Warsaw Ghetto to begin its liquidation. It was not just men who participated in the resistance work within the ghetto or the uprising itself. Many women from all kinds of backgrounds also played key roles, and some participated in combat. Some were teenagers, some were mothers. Some acted as messengers or helped smuggle weapons. All demonstrated great strength and courage in the face of unthinkable circumstances. Here are just some of their stories. Known as Little Wanda with the braids, Nyuta Titelbaum was a deputy commander of the combat unit of the People's Guard in the Warsaw Ghetto and a participant in numerous sabotage operations. Nyuta Titelbaum was a Jewish resistance fighter in Poland who, despite her innocent youthful appearance, was a deadly assassin who shot dead 4 Nazi officers. Born in Warsaw in 1917, Nyuta was raised in a religious Jewish family. When the Nazis invaded Poland in 1939, Nyuta was one of the first volunteers to join the underground resistance movement. She said, "I am a Jew. My place is in the struggle against the Nazis for the honor of my people and for a free Poland." Nyuta was 22, but petite and baby-faced, she looked much younger. Wearing her blonde hair in 2 long braids, she resembled a Polish farm girl, which enabled her to move around Warsaw without arousing suspicion among the Nazi guards stationed around the city. Nyuta smuggled weapons, people, and documents, and helped Jews find safe havens even as she repeatedly put herself in danger. With audacious bravery, sometime around 1942, Nyuta approached the Nazi headquarters in Warsaw. Questioned by the officer guarding the front door, Nyuta, acting shy and embarrassed, said she needed to see a certain high-ranking German officer. She said it was a personal matter, implying that she was pregnant and out of wedlock. The guard at the door snickered as he told her the officer's room number and gave her a special pass to enter her supposed paramour's private office. She thanked him shyly and walked through the building to her lover's office. Nyuta entered the room to find the officer sitting at his desk. Before he could say a word, she pulled out a pistol with a silencer and shot him in the head. He died instantly. Calm and collected, Nyuta made her way back through the building to the front door and thanked the guard sweetly. Titelbaum shot 5 Nazi soldiers in one day in 1943 and is reputed to have placed a bomb in Warsaw's Kammerlichtspiel cinema, which was frequented by Nazi soldiers in January of that same year. Because her resistance activities were so secretive, information is incomplete. What is known is that in another startlingly courageous episode, Nyuta shot 3 Gestapo agents, killing 2 and wounding a 3rd. Then she obtained a white lab coat and pretended to be a doctor to gain entry to the agent's hospital room and shot him again, killing him this time. Nuta landed a spot on the Nazis' most wanted list with a bounty of 150,000 zlotys on her head. For 3 years, Nuta evaded her German pursuers and continued her resistance activities until she was captured in 1943 and imprisoned with thousands of other Polish Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto, where she participated in the famous uprising of April 1943. For most of the ghetto fighters, it was a suicide mission. They knew they were likely to die, but wanted to go down fighting. Nuta was one of the few who survived the ghetto battles and managed to escape. However, in July 1943, her hiding place in Warsaw was discovered and she was arrested by the Gestapo. Nuta was beaten and tortured for several weeks, but she refused to give information about any other resistance fighters or activities. Nuta was executed by the Germans later that year at age 25.
Rachel Sarenka Silberberg.
Rachel Sonika Silberberg was born in 1920 Warsaw to Orthodox Jewish parents. She studied at the Jewish Gymnasia and received her certificate just as the Second World War broke out on September 1st, 1939, with the German invasion of Poland. 2 weeks later, the USSR invaded Poland from the east. Sorenka escaped to eastern Poland ahead of the German advance, joined the Hashoma, and lived in Vilna with her partner Moshe Kapatiro, with whom she had a daughter, Maya, in 1941. With her good education, she immediately adopted a leadership role in the group. 4 months later, the German army attacked the Soviet positions in eastern Poland. Sonika described the deportation of Jews from the Vilna ghetto. It was a night of horrors. We, the members of the Hashoma, hid in one apartment. We listened to the voices coming from the street. The German vehicle stopped, and then we heard voices, shouts, shots, heart-wrenching crying. This is how they evacuated one street after another. To where? To the forest near the city, Polnar. No doubt the Valley of Slaughter. Sonika moved into hiding in a convent 4 miles outside of Vilna with some 50 to 20 others. The idea of an uprising took shape. After Moshe was murdered by the Nazis while attempting to buy milk and supplies for their daughter, Sonika gave up her daughter, whose later history is still unknown, in order to re-enter the besieged ghetto and rejoin the Hashma combat unit. The leadership decided to return Sorenka to Warsaw for partisan action. She dressed up as a child to sneak into the ghetto in January of 1942 with 2 objectives. The first was to bear message as an eyewitness of the extermination of Jews in Polnar, near Vilna. Her fellow Jews had not heard those details until then. The second was to arouse and motivate rebellion against the Nazis from inside the ghetto. Sorenka was one of the few leaders who actually re-entered the besieged ghetto rather than flee it. She was among the first to set out on an impassioned journey to spread knowledge of the Nazi plan to eradicate the Jews in the Holocaust. Sorenka confronted her peers repeatedly with this information until she convinced the leaders of the Jewish uprising movement of the severity of their situation. On her return to the ghetto, a group of youth united around her, some of whom she instructed as a counselor. She detailed the Nazi massacre. One day we were called to our brigade meeting with a young women delegate from the Vilna ghetto. Her name was Sorenka, or Rachel. We all sat on the floor, and before us stood a young woman, about 22 years old, whose hair already showed white streaks. In the twilight, she looked so pretty and noble, but her eyes seemed extinguished. She described her experience of the removal of Jews by the Nazis for massacre. Cernenka died in the bunker called Mila 18 in Warsaw, where her name is engraved on a memorial headstone, together with those of other Jewish fighters.
Mira Fuchrer.
Mira Fuchrer was born in Warsaw in 1920 and was active in the Hashomer Hatzir youth organization, where she met Mordecai Anulowitz, who became the leader of the Jewish Combat Organization, the largest Jewish resistance movement during World War II. After fleeing Warsaw, they returned in January 1940 and began transforming Hashomer Hatzir into the resistance movement. In November 1940, they joined the fate of other Jewish citizens trapped in newly formed ghetto. She later visited other ghettos in occupied Poland as a clandestine courier on behalf of the JCO. During the ghetto uprising, which began on 19th April 1943, she fought in the central ghetto sector. On May 8, 1943, she was in the uprising command post bunker under Mila 18th Street, together with Mordecai Anulowitz, Rachel Zilberberg, and a group of about 120 Jewish fighters, when the bunker was discovered. Surrounded by the Germans, she refused to surrender, and she, along with Zilberberg, Commander Anulowitz, and other members of the Jewish resistance, committed suicide by shooting themselves or taking poison. This is how Marek Elderman recalled this event. Anulowitz had a girlfriend, a pretty, bright, warm girl. On May 8, 1943, he shot her and then himself at Mila Street.
Vlad Gamid, born Fegala Peltel.
Vlatka Mead. A native of Warsaw, at age 14, Vlatka Mead joined the Jewish Labor Bund and at age 20 became part of the Jewish Combat Organization. Her mother and all her siblings had been slaughtered in the Treblinka extermination camp. Her father had also died. Vlatka was spared when they were taken because she worked in a German factory and had papers to show the Nazis when they raided her town. She later evaded capture by using the identity card and adopting the identity of a collaborator's dead daughter. Vlatka Mead's resistance work started with the deportation of 265,000 Jews from Warsaw to the Treblinka death camp and continued after the uprising of the ghetto's besieged remnants. When the Germans walled off a portion of Warsaw, she was still a teenager. Working as a machine operator, sewing Nazi uniforms, she grew increasingly dejected watching the deportations in 1942 that included her entire family. But she responded resourcefully to a call for armed resistance. With her flawless Polish and Aryan good looks, Vlatka Mead boldly refused to wear the Jewish armbands and gambled she would get away with adopting the identity of a Polish Christian. Since she could pose as a Gentile, the Jewish underground asked her to live on the Christian side of the wall and become a courier. Born Fegala Peltel, she took the Polish nom de guerre, Vlatka, and kept it the rest of her life. Vlatka was soon buying bullets, pistols, even dynamite, and carrying them, as well as money and essential information, to the Jewish side of the wall to aid in the ghetto uprising. She was able to smuggle gasoline for Molotov cocktails and dynamite to the Jewish fighters inside the ghetto, and fake papers to smuggle Jews out. She also helped deliver money, clothes, and information to the few surviving insurgents from the Warsaw ghetto who had gone into hiding in the surrounding forests and joined the partisan movement. Several times, Vlatka smuggled Jewish children out of the ghetto and into the homes of sympathetic Christian families. She helped rescue some of the Jews fighting inside by smuggling them out through the sewers. Women were often preferred as couriers, she said in a 1983 interview. If a man in the underground went on a mission, he could be recognized as a Jew by his circumcision, she said. A woman's body might be searched, but it could not give that information. Władka helped pass on to the Polish underground the startling news about Treblinka, that trains filled with Jews were returning empty, that no food was being shipped, and that there was an omnipresent stench of corpses. Sometimes Władka was part of a Polish ghetto work detail. Sometimes she bribed her way across, and sometimes she clambered over the wall. With death all but certain, she recalled, there was very little left to fear. The ghetto uprising, in which lightly armed young fighters took on the Nazis by firing from hideouts in buildings and sewers, began in January 1943 and continued for 4 months, though Władka Mead did not take part in the final battle in April. She had been ordered to remain outside the walls for future missions, and as the rebellion ended, she saw the smoke billowing from the ghetto while pretending to enjoy a carousel ride. Ari in Warsaw hardly lifted a finger to help the Jews, she wrote in her memoir. After the uprising, she continued to work for the underground, carrying provisions and money hidden in her shoes and bra to Jews in hiding. In 1944, she married Benjamin Mead, another courier. The Meads were on one of the first boats carrying survivors to reach New York, arriving in the U.S. in 1946 with $8 between them. They raised 2 children in New York, one of whom, Dr. Stephen Mead, was one of Rabbi Morit's congregants. Rabbi Morit was humbled to officiate at Władka Mead's funeral. Władka Mead told her story in Yiddish in her 1948 book, On Both Sides of the Wall, one of the first published eyewitness accounts. It was translated into English, German, and at least 3 other languages, is still in print, and was a central source of the 2001 television movie, Uprising. With her husband and a handful of other survivors, Władka Mead took a leading role in efforts to get the world to acknowledge what the Nazis had done to the Jews in Europe. It was a difficult proposition, given the impulse of so many people after World War II to put the slaughter behind them. As her husband prospered in an export-import business, they were able to start organizations that brought the survivors, often feeling isolated even within the Jewish community, together and gave them a potent identity. The Meads helped start the Warsaw Ghetto Resistance Organization in 1962, and then the American Gathering of Jewish Holocaust Survivors, which, beginning in 1981, rallied thousands to reunions in Israel and the U.S. These events sometimes featured American presidents, and the resulting attention inspired books, films, courses, and contributed to the creation of museums in Washington and New York. Władka Mead also arranged for the American Federation of Teachers to train teachers in Holocaust education. Over the years, she took about 750 teachers on a 3.5-week program to Israel and Poland to teach the Holocaust, including visits to the death camps and to the Warsaw that she knew so intimately. She would teach, I would like to say to people not to take for granted, not freedom, not justice. You have to stand up for it. You have to defend this. Władka explained her motive in a 1988 interview. Our ranks are getting thinner and thinner, she said, and we were thinking how and who will continue to tell the story, but to tell the story the right way.
invite us to rise for the Mourner's Kaddish on page 606. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah,
Amen.
v'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam ulamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei b'kudesha richu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran v'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen. You may be seated.
Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen.
We now start our transition from Yizkor and martyrology into Mincha. And as we transition back, I invite us to bring our attention back, if we can, to last night when we chanted 3 repetitions of Kol Nidre. My teacher, Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi, teaches that each repetition is addressed to a different dimension of self. So as we are heading into the waning hours of Yom Kippur and our journey, I'm inviting you to put down your machzor and travel along with me on a guided imagery, scanning all our corners for what needs release. Center yourself, find a place where the body is in equilibrium, feet on the floor, jaw and neck supple. Close your eyes if it helps, and take a few centering breaths. Pay attention to both the inhale and the out-breath. The first time we heard Kol Nidre was for the body. And we might ask ourselves, are there muscles in my body that are committed to a particular way of being that doesn't serve me? Have they become perhaps an anchor for a destructive pattern of behavior that has begun to feel normal? Are there commitments to destructive habits lodged in my muscles? And because of old habits that I have held in my musculature, can I stretch in new ways? We have muscles that we use consciously and unconsciously. Find and stretch some of them if you can. Scan and stretch your facial muscles. Observe their at-rest position. What do they reflect? Gratitude, disappointment, judgment, acceptance, curiosity? What's there? See if you can stretch other muscles in ways that are unaccustomed. Good. Remember to return to this practice and stretch into a new way of holding your body, a better way to use your face, your smile. Okay, let's center ourselves again and focus on the breath. This second one is a message for the heart. Give your heart muscle a massage. the most powerful muscle in your body, and it's also the seat of compassion. And here too, might we have stored habits of heart that need change? We each have old emotional memories that have been stored, derived from real experiences, but have been edited and stored in a way that now perhaps hurts us and holds us back. Are there old, stale habits of feeling? Are there resentments that have become like vows that you need to let go of in order to release new creativity in relationships? Massage your heart and allow the vows that hold you back from loving to soften and release. Be released. Now we return to a place where the body is in equilibrium once more. Breathe in, out, in, out. The third, examine any vows you've made to different habits of mind, different reality maps. To what are we bound? Maybe you've said, this is really the truth, or this is really the way of understanding things that are happening that will always guide me. But some of those assumptions may not be working anymore. Is it time to say, I'm letting go of this reality map because it no longer is useful for me, or as true as perhaps it once was? And holding on to this map is anchoring me to a perspective that is not a true enough picture. Maybe I promised this would always guide me, but perhaps I now want to let go of that. But I want to hold on to the benefit of my experience, so where do I draw the line? What do I let go of? Return to the breath. And file the images that came to you in a place where you can return. Think of them again as you lie down and go to sleep tonight. And let them take root within. Oziv Zimmerat, Yah, my strength and my song with my God, that will be my salvation. Page 325. turn to the Torah service of the Mincha, offering of Yom Kippur, page 329, 328, and we rise. Somebody to open the ark. Vayehi bin Aharon, Vayomer Moshe, Kuma Adonai, Ve'afutsu oivecha, Ve'hanusu misanecha, mipanecha, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Udevar Adonai Yerushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, Le'amo Yisrael B'kedushato, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'nora Shemo, Gadol Adonai iti, Uniromema Shemo Yachdav, Adonai Hagidula V'Hagivura V'Hatiferet V'Hanetzach V'Hahod, Ki Chol B'Shamayim U'Va'aretz, Ki Chol B'Shamayim U'Va'aretz, Adonai Amacha Ve'amin Aseh Lechol Erosh.
רוממו אדוני אלוהינו ושתחוו להקודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו ושתחוו להקודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו ושתחוו להקודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו ושתחוו להקודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו.
Actually, Erwin, we could use that back. Please be seated. You could easily say that the mission statement of the Jewish people begins in the Torah reading today. Begins the reading. When it says, "You shall be holy because I am holy." Kedoshim tihiyu ki kadosh ani. Not perfect, not faithful, but holy. We are the human embodiment of godliness, and our charge is to live our lives to comport ourselves as befits children of royalty. Our Torah reading this morning is a section of what is known as the Holiness Code, and its purpose is nothing less than to remind us of that fact every day of our lives. The reading begins on page 338. V'tigale v'tira'e malchuto aleinu b'zman karov, ויחון פליטתנו פלטת עמו בית ישראל, לכן ולחסד ולרחמים לרצון, ונאמר אמן. הכל הבו גודל אלוהינו, נו כבוד לתורה, יעמדו חברים ברוך שנתן תורה, לעמו ישראל בקדושתו. ואתם הדבקים באדוני אלוהיכם, חיים כולכם hayom. Now la'amod, we call to the Torah for the first aliyah. Ya'amod Shmuel ben Chaim, our beloved treasurer, Chris Ig Rishon.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach
Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, Daber el kol ha'adah b'nei Yisrael, v'amarta alehem kadoshim hagi ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohechem, ish amo ve'avav trio ve'et shavato tishchoro ani Adonai Elohechem el tipono El ha'elohechem ha'ele misacha lo tahaso lachem ani Adonai Elohechem v'chi tavnecha veitcha shelamim milchot lirtzochem v'hatzveto beyom v'chahem.
Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'chayei Olam Notad B'tochenu Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Thank you. Stand on that side now. Does anybody have the second aliyah? That's going to be for you, Cantor Bresnik.
Alrighty.
Ya'amod hechazan. Your Hebrew name.
Oh,
Leora bat. Meir Feigl V'Shoshana Sheni.
Just making sure that Amelie has her section. Alright, you're starting in verse 6. Bayom. Okay.
Verse 6.
Yep. Bayom. It's
Page 338, verse 6.
Yep, it's going to be somewhere in here. We're almost there. There it is. Right there. Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Bayom Zivhachem Ye'achel Umimachovat V'hanotar Ad Yom HaShlishi Ve'esh Yisaref Ve'im He'acho Ye'achel Bayom HaShlishi Tigul Hu Lo Yeratzeh Ve'ochalav avono yisaha ki et kodesh Adonai chilel v'nichreta hanefesh hahi me'amecha u'kutzrechem et katzir artzechem lo tichale pe'at tzadcha biksod v'leket katzircha lo tilaket.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'chayei Olam Nata B'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. You want to call me?
Absolutely. Amod Rav.
Meir Alea.
Meir Alela. Halea.
Bat Feivel Gershon.
Bat Feivel Gershon.
Shoshana Root.
Shoshana Root. The Aliyah La Torah.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamavarach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Karmecha lo tolel uferet karmecha lo tilaket leini velager tazovotem ani Adonai Elohechem lo tignovu velo techashu velo tishakru ish ba'amito velo tishavu vishmi la shaker vitil ta et Shem Elohecha ani Adonai.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Hold that still. I gotta get back here.
Yep.
Invite Hagba and Galila. Anybody have that honor to lift the Torah? All right. Oh, this one's right up your alley, Trent. It's really even. And Sydney. Yes, please
All
rise
right.
for Hagba and Galila, page 340.
V'zot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 na lai lai na lai lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai.
Please be seated. We are at the reading of the Havdalah, which is the story of Jonah. Jonah doesn't want to remember. Jonah doesn't want to be a witness. Jonah wants to get out of Dodge. He's being called. He's being voluntold. People have differing reactions to that. He wants to hide. He hides throughout the natural world, out at sea, in the belly of the whale, and under a plant. Our natural world, too, is calling out to us, but with each passing season, we, too, are running out of places to hide. Like Jonah, it's upon us to bear witness and do all we can to reverse the effects of climate change whenever we have the opportunity. I'm going to chant this in the English, starting the blessings in the Hebrew, but the text in the English, starting on page 342.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim יצא ודבריהם הנאמרים באמת. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בתורה ובמשה עבדו ובישראל עמו ובנביאי האמת בצדק. ויהי דבר אדוני אל יונן בן אמיתי לאמור, לך אל נינווה העיר הגדולה ואוקרא עליה כי עתה רעתם
You're doing this in Hebrew, not in English?
לפני. Chapters 1 and 2 in Hebrew, and then you take over in English.
Okay.
According to the cue sheet. Vayakom Yonah livroach Tarshisha milfnei Adonai vayeren yavo vayimtzu aniyah bahar Tarshish vayitain shechara vayered balavo imahem Tarshisha milfnei Adonai hetil ruach gadol el hayam vayihi sar gadol bayom v'haniyah hishva lehishva ver vayiru hamalachim vayizaku ish el Elohim vayitilu el hakelim asher bani el hayam lehakel me'alehem v'yonah yarad el yarkitei hasfina vayishka vayardem vayikram elav rav tachovel vayomer lo malecha nidram kira el Elohechi ulei yitashet ha-Elohim lanu velo noved vayomru ishrehu lehu v'napila goralot v'nedaha v'shelmi haram hazot lanu vayipilu giralot vayifo hagadol al Yonah vayomru elav hagidana lanu ba'asher lemihara hazot lanu ma melachtecha umeyayin tavo ma artzecha ben mizeh am ata Vayomer Elohim Yivtei Anochi Ve'et Adonai Elohei Hashamayim Ani Yareh Asher Asa Et Hayam Ve'et Hayabasha Vayiru Hanashim Yirah HaGedolah Vayomru Elav Mazot Asita Kiadu Hanashim Ki milifnei Adonai hu voreach ki hagid lahem vayomru alav ma naaseh lach vayishtok hayam me'aleinu ki hayam holech v'so'er vayomer alehem se'uni v'hatninuni el hayom vayishtok hayam me'alechem ki yodeani ki v'sheli hasar hagadol hazeh alechem vayitru hanashim v'hashiv al hayabashar v'lo yachlo ki hayom olech v'soer aleihem vayikreu el Adonai vayomru Anna Adonai Anna novda בנפש האיש הזה, ואל תיתן עלינו דם נקי, כי אתה אדוני כאשר חפצת עשית. וישו את יונה ויתלוהו אל הים, ויעמוד הים מזפו. ויראו הנשים, יראו גדולה את אדוני, ויזבחו זבח לאדוני, ויראו נדרים.
And Adonai provided a great fish to swallow Jonah. Oh, I'm in chapter 3. I'm sorry. And the word of Adonai came to Jonah the second time. Get up to the great city of Nineveh and call out to it the proclamation that I tell you. And so Jonah got up and went to Nineveh according to the word of Adonai. Now Nineveh was a great city of God, 3 days' journey across. And Jonah started out and made his way into the city, a distance of 1 day walk. And he called out and said, 40 more days, and Nineveh shall be overturned. The people of Nineveh trusted in God. They proclaimed a fast, and they put on sackcloth from the richest to the poorest. And word reached the king of Nineveh, and he got up from his throne, took off his robe, and put on sackcloth, and sat in ashes. And he cried out and said in Nineveh, by decree of the king and his nobles, no person or beast or flock or herd shall taste anything. They shall not graze, and they shall not drink water. They shall be covered with sackcloth, person and beast, and shall call loudly to God. Let all turn back from their evil ways and from the violence which is in their hands. Who knows? God may turn and relent. Turn back from the heat of anger so we do not perish. God saw what they did and how they were turning back from their evil ways. God relented from the evil planned for them and did not carry it out. But to Jonah this was great evil, and it made him angry. So he prayed to Adonai, saying, please, Adonai, this is not what I said when I was still in my own country. This is why I fled to Tarshish to begin with. For I knew that you are a gracious and compassionate God, endlessly patient and abounding in steadfast love, ready to repent of evil. And now, Adonai, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than live. And Adonai said, is it good for you to be angry? Then Jonah left the city and found a place east of the city, made himself a shelter there and sat under it in the shade until he might see what would become of the city. And Adonai Elohim provided a gourd and made it rise up over Jonah to give shade for his head and rescue him from his evil situation. And Jonah rejoiced with great joy because of the gourd. But at dawn the next day, God provided a worm that attacked the gourd, and it withered. As the sun rose, God provided an oppressive wind from the east, and the sun beat down on Jonah's head, making him faint. He begged for death, saying, "It is better for me to die than live." Then God said to Jonah, "Are you good and angry about the gourd?" And he said, "I'm good and angry to the point of death." Then Adonai said, "You pitied the gourd, which you neither worked for nor grew, which appeared overnight and perished overnight. Should I then not have compassion for the great city of Nineveh, a place of more than 120,000 human beings, unable to tell their right hand from their left, and many beasts? Is there another God like you, pardoning iniquity, annulling transgression from the remnant of this people? God does not hold fast to endless anger, for you delight in kindness. God will take us back, will have compassion for us, and will subdue our iniquities. Into the depths of the sea you will cast all our sins. You will be true and faithful to Jacob, granting steadfast love to Abraham, as you swore to our ancestors in days of old.
Yasher koach.
To you as well. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzadik bechol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer ve'oseh, ha'medaber u'mkayem, shekol dvarav emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah, ve'al ha'nevi'im, ve'al yom ha'kippurim hazeh, shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, limchila ve'lislicha, ולכפרה ולכבוד ולתפארת על הכל. אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד, ודבריך אמת וקיים לעד. ברוך אתה אדוני מלך מוהל וסולח לעוונותינו, לעוונות עמו בית ישראל, ומעביר אשמותינו בכל שנה ושנה. מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל. מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל. ויום הכיפורים. We rise, page 352, to return the Torah back to the ark. Yehalelu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado, hodo al eretz v'shamayim, vayarem kerem lehamo, tila lechol Hasidav livnei Yisrael am kerovo. Hallelujah, Hallelujah. 352. Ki lekach tov natati lachem Torati al tazovu Eitz chaim hi lemachazikim ba vetomreya meusha deracheya dachenoam vechol netivoteya shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu kekedem. I invite us to remain standing for the Amidah on page 360. Baruch atah Adonai
Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo
Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzhak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor Vehanora Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim Vekonei Hakol Vezocher Haste Avot Ve'imahot Umevi Goyla Livnei V'neihem Leman Shemo Be'ahava Zochreinu L'chaim Melech Hafetz Chaim Zochreinu L'chaim Melech Hafetz Chaim V'hodvenu B'sefer HaChaim Lemancha Elohim Vayim Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen Baruch Ata Adonai
Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo
Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah
Amen.
Ata Gibor Leolam Adonai Mechayem Etim Atarav Lehoshia Morid Hatav Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed Mechayem Etim Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Hofech Olirim Umatir Asurim Kayem emunato lishenei afar mi chamocha ba'al givurot ומדומה לך מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. מי כמוך אל הרחמים זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים, ונאמן אתה לך חיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני
ברוך הוא שמו
מחיי המתים.
Amen.
368, a cappella. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. בשבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש, לעולם ועד. כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה. 372.
Adonai Hanua, Kom Maasecha B'madcha Ma Shebaruta. Ra'ucha Kol Hamasim Ve'yishtachavu Lefanecha Kol Habruim Ve'yasu
לעשות רצונך בלבב שלם, כמו שידענו אדוני אלוהינו, שהשלטון לפניך עוז בידיך, וגבורה בימינך, ושמך נורא על כל מה שברא אתה.
David Avdecha Varichanet Levenisha Meshichecha Bimchara Veyameinu.
וכן צדיקים יראו וישמחו, וישרים יעלוזו, וחסידים ברנה יגילו, ויולדתם תקפוץ פיה, וכל הרשעה כולה כעשן תכלה, כי תעביר ממשלת זדון, מן הארץ
ותמחו.
אתה אדוני לבדך על כל מעשיך, בהר ציון משכן כבודך, וירושלים עיר קודשך, ככתוב בדברי קודשך, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. קדוש אתה, ונורא שמך, ואין אלוה מבלעדיך, ככתוב ויגבה אדוני צבאות במשפט, והאל הקדוש נקדש בצדקה. ברוך אתה אדוני המלך הקדוש.
Amen.
Our silence of this Mincha, I suggest we just put down the book and use our own words. We'll meet back at page 410. Pray from the heart. Please be seated. The reading on page 411.
I have spoken words of tradition, but this silence belongs to me, to whatever is eternal amid ceaseless ebb and flow, to the root of goodness, to being itself, ever present, ever emerging, expressed in the bodies of all living things, to the indwelling presence that powers my own pulse beat, to the giver of life, who is with me all my days, I address myself in reverence, Hineni. I set before you this day all that I am and wish to be, Hineni, receiving the offering of my heart.
Page 414, Ki anu amecha. Ki anu amecha,
ve'ata Eloheinu, anu lanecha, ve'ata avinu.
Anu avadecha, ve'ata Adonenu, anu keharecha, ve'ata Elkeinu,
Anu
nachalatecha, ve'ata goraleinu, anu tzodecha, ve'ata roeinu,
anu
chamecha, ve'ata notreinu, anu ve'ulotecha, ve'ata yotzreinu, anu rayatecha, ve'ata dodenu, anu zigulotecha, ve'ata kroveinu, anu amechecha, ve'ata malkeinu, anu
in the handout, we have to acknowledge the good along with the errors. So on the handout, we have loved, we have blessed, we have grown, we have spoken positively. Please rise. We have raised up, we have shown compassion, we have acted enthusiastically, we have been empathetic, we have cultivated truth. We have given good advice, we have respected, we have learned, we've been resilient, we have comforted. We've been creative, we have forgiven, we have stirred, we've been spiritual activists, we've been just, we have longed for Israel. We've been merciful, we've given full effort, we've sustained hope, we have contributed, we have repaired. Please remain standing for the Vidui, page 418. Al het shechatanu lefanecha, deliberately and by mistake.
Through insincere promises.
Al het shechatanu lefanecha, by judging others unfairly.
By making light of serious matters.
Al het shechatanu lefanecha, by giving in to our hostile impulses.
Through condescension.
Al het shechatanu lefanecha, through our innermost thoughts.
Through the words of our mouths.
Al het shechatanu lefanecha, through lies and deceit.
By mistreating a friend or neighbor.
Al het shechatanu lefanecha, by hating without cause.
Through hypocrisy.
For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. Shechatanu lefanecha, openly and secretly.
Through our thoughtlessness.
Al het shechatanu lefanecha, by profaning your name in public.
Words through offensive speech.
Al het shechatanu lefanecha, through gossip and rumor.
Through disrespect to parents and teachers.
Al het shechatanu lefanecha, through narrow-mindedness.
Through dishonesty in business.
Al het shechatanu lefanecha, through sexual immorality.
Through consumption of food and drink.
Al het shechatanu lefanecha, by betraying trust.
Through impulsive acts of malice.
For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement.
Kulam Elolo haslichot Selach lanu mechalanu kapelanu Ve'al kulam Elo haslichot Selach Selach lanu mekalanu, selach lanu mekalanu, kaper lanu.
Please be seated. The Talmud quotes Rabbi Hanina saying, "I've learned much from my teachers, more from my colleagues, and the most from my students." It's become a tradition at Temple Beth-El that we take some time on the afternoon of Yom Kippur to learn from each other. And I am so very grateful to John Russick, Tom Rosensweet, and Kristen Michelson, who are sharing with us the Torah of their lives this Yom Kippur. This is what it means to be a community, that we share our experience and what is real for us. So, John.
This may be a little more of a summary than a speech, but I hope that today of all days you'll forgive me. Can you hear it?
Let's do that a little closer.
How close?
That's good.
Okay.
We're good.
When Rabbi Mort asked if I would speak today about what Judaism means to me, I was honored and anxious. Anxious for typical public speaking reasons. I'm not great at this. I'm often used to stammering, flop sweat, tunnel vision. But the truth is I was anxious because I don't know. I don't know what it means to me. I'm not entirely sure what it means to be Jewish, but I know that it's at my core, and I know that it's important to me to raise my daughter with our traditions. So I don't have an answer. Instead, I have questions. Questions that spawn more questions. Why is it important that my family be here if I don't believe in God? I did once, and I believed it was a necessary condition for being Jewish. I know this because at around age 14 or 15, I insisted so to a much older family friend, to such an extent it is now a well-worn family story. I went to Hebrew school. I was bar mitzvahed, president of my USY chapter, summer pilgrimage to Israel, house manager of the Bayit, the Jewish house at Wesleyan. Is belief in God really a precondition of Judaism? At some point, my Judaism became more about community and culture than God. So to pick a label, I'm a cultural Jew, and I'm okay with that, mostly. I question how sustainable it is from a generational standpoint, which is part of why I took my daughter to Tat Shabbat, why she's enrolled in the Hebrew school, why I hope she'll choose to have a bat mitzvah. I glibly tell friends that she has to go through it to come out the other side an atheist Jew just like me. But it's not really a joke. So why is it so important to me? I think Judaism provides a healthy framework for life, offering spiritual nourishment while encouraging reason and discourse. I love that questioning, is integral to Jewish learning and life. Judaism means you can have more questions than answers. And it's not only okay, it's essential. And so, some difficult questions. Wouldn't my wife and I provide that structure without a Jewish identity? Wouldn't it be easier to grow up without people marching against you? Without needing armed protection outside your community center? Without building a belief in a higher power that some people invoke in the worst possible ways? Probably. So again, why is it so important to me? It's really one word, and you'll excuse me if I choke up or if I've buried the lead. Shoah. In addition to being a pretty typical cultural reform Jew who checked all the activity boxes, my grandmother survived the Shoah, and my father was born in a DP camp after World War II. I do remember one moment that drove me away from any simple concept of God and paradoxically reinforced my Jewish identity and desire for continuity. It was when I realized that the great uncle who hadn't made it out of the camps wasn't an old man who'd lived his life. He was a child younger than my siblings. I'm not going to explore this in depth right now, whether it's even a good or bad reason to feel Jewish or to stay Jewish. I don't think I can make it through that right now, and you can find those arguments all over the internet. But it's important to me, important enough to be the answer to some of my questions. My daughter carries my grandmother's name, and one day we'll talk about why. And I expect that no matter how that goes, she will walk away with more questions than answers. And that's wonderful.
Shalom, 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 shalom.
John, thank you for those inspiring words. My name is Tom Rosensweet. Most of you know that I served as president of this congregation for 6 years until Phil Gary took the reins on July 1st. Thank you, Phil. You might think that the president of a synagogue would have followed a certain fairly standard path. Maybe the path that John just told us about his early life. Devout parents go to religious school and have a big bar mitzvah celebration at the age of 13, go to Jewish camp, a Jewish youth group, travel to Israel with the National Federation of Temple Youth, and then take many more trips to Israel as an adult. The president of the synagogue might have gone to Brandeis University and attended all the Hillel events there. Starting a new job in a new place, this temple president-to-be would join the local synagogue to tend to their continued spiritual growth and to make friends. He'd marry a nice Jewish girl. They would send their own children to religious school and kvel over their bar or bat mitzvah. Eventually, he'd join the temple board and finally be accorded the honor and the responsibility of the presidency for a year or two. Well, I'm not batting zero, but I didn't really follow that path. When I was asked to join the board and later to become president, I thought I was about the most unlikely candidate there could be. But I couldn't say no either. This all made me think, what does it mean to be a Jew? Is it your religious background? My parents rarely went to temple except for the high holidays. We lit Hanukkah candles and had a small family Seder and read the Maxwell House Haggadah. They sent me to religious school and I was confirmed in the 10th grade because our classical Reformed temple didn't offer B'nai Mitzvah services. But religion was not a big thing in our house. Is being Jewish an ethnicity? My parents weren't really what you would call ethnic. My father grew up in Ohio, and my mother in Indiana, home of Mike Pence, for God's sake. They spoke like Midwesterners, not immigrants or New Yorkers, and our home was very quiet. Now, I had an Aunt Fritz and Uncle Mo, who also lived in Pittsburgh. They belonged to one of the conservative temples. They were more observant than we were, more ethnic, and just more into being Jewish. Aunt Fritz was loud, and everybody agreed that she was a real balabusta. She loved to make huge meals and host a big crowd for a holiday. The adults were drinking, the kids were running around like maniacs, I found the whole thing terrifying. I didn't feel like I belonged there. As I said, I grew up in Pittsburgh and went to Taylor Alderdice High School. Now there's a Jewish name for you. Alderdice was in the well-known, heavily Jewish neighborhood of Squirrel Hill. Around ninth grade, the boys were selected to join a couple of clubs at the Jewish Community Center. I knew them all and was friendly with most of them, but they never invited me to join, and I was hurt by that. Eventually, I figured out that most of them had gone to camp together. It wasn't a Jewish camp exactly, but it was a camp where most of the kids were Jewish. And they had more money than my family had. I stayed home during the summer and played with the kids on my street, eventually got some summer jobs. It wasn't a terrible thing. But the JCC was another Jewish space where I didn't exactly feel welcome. Eventually, I started applying for college, and I wound up at Brandeis University, finally accepted by the Jews. My friends there were mostly Jewish, but they were secular. We didn't live in the quad that was over by the kosher dining hall. Still, Judaism meant only the high holidays and Passover to me. And so it went through college, various jobs, marriage, and fatherhood. There was no doubt that I was a Jew, but what did that mean? Some Jews are spiritual and see the hand of God everywhere. I don't really see the world that way. Some people keep kosher and perform many of our Jewish rituals. I think they would say because God commanded it, or simply because they're a Jew. But I'm not so big on ritual. Isn't that one of the reasons why the Reform movement was established in the first place? To some, being Jewish is all about family, ethnicity, or their social milieu. Well, I've talked about that. Despite all this, when I was asked to become president of this congregation, I didn't really see a choice. It was a responsibility I had to accept. It was my duty to all the friends I had made here over the years, to my ancestors, to this historic congregation. It was something I could do for my people. What did I do as president? I really tried to encourage more people to come to services and to participate in the activities we have here, to participate in the care and maintenance of our building and our congregation. Today, while I'd still like to see more people get involved, it is decidedly not an exclusive club that decides who is and who is not worthy to participate. Many people here apply their skills to our needs. In the process, they gain some camaraderie and make new friends. If you're not doing that, join us. Please join our congregation, join our committees, join our board. Fully participate here at Temple Beth-El. All are welcome. For the past year or two, I've worked with a small team of supremely dedicated people on what seems like a never-ending quest to rebuild our social hall downstairs. We've worked hard to design it, we're still raising money to pay for it, and now we're working to get the needed approvals so that we can build it. We're getting there, and once it's done, we will all have a place to be proud of, a place to gather and be one big family. I can only say that when that voice calls out to you, whether it's on the other end of the phone or it's only in your head, step up. Email me, tom@betheljc.org, without the hyphen. Email Phil, I'll volunteer Phil, at betheljc.org, or Rabbi Moret at betheljc.org. Support this temple. Do it for your people. Do it for your community. Do it for your children. Do it for yourself. You don't have to do it forever, but you and many others will be glad you did. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova. Shalom, 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 shalom.
Oh man, I'm already about to cry and I haven't even started yet. Okay, so my name is Kristen Michelson. I am one of the chairs of the Religious Practices Committee, and when Rabbi asked me to speak about my relationship with Judaism, I immediately agreed because I love speaking about Judaism and I love being Jewish. I talk about it all the time, when we say in our prayers, like at work and at school, that's me. And even more so, Temple Beth-El, and especially Rabbi Mort, have come to be my family's Jewish home more than anywhere else that we've ever prayed or been a part of in the Jewish community. And if I could choose just a few words about what Judaism means to me, it means home and love. I will keep going about that. So Judaism is really a journey for me. I converted. My name's Kristen. Most people would would think that. But it began a long time ago when I was in college at the University of Pennsylvania. I'm originally from California. I came over to the East Coast for college. And all of a sudden, I was paired with a roommate, very nice. But about a month into school, all of a sudden, she started buying tickets to go back home to DC to be with her family for these holidays that I've never heard about. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I grew up in a small community in California. I didn't know any Jewish people before I went to college. And if you know Penn, it's a very Jewish school. It didn't have the quotas when a lot of the other Ivies did. So it's a very strong Jewish population. And from there, I just kept learning. I asked, why are you going home? Why is this so important? I grew up Catholic, but not practicing, and it never attracted me in the way that I was interested in Judaism. And you're allowed to ask questions, which coming from a very authoritarian family and Catholicism not being quite as open sometimes to questioning, depending on where you're worshiping, this seemed like a really different way to go about life. There's a big social justice component, and there's also lots of different types of Jews, which I loved. Being a perfectionist, I always want to be one thing and be exactly that, but Judaism gives a lot more range of expression that I've always appreciated. So that being said, how did I end up here as a Jew addressing the congregation on Yom Kippur? So I met the person that I ended up marrying in college, and we were married for a decade, and we kept learning about Judaism, and together we did a lot of that during college. We went to Chabad, which is amazing, except for, imagine my excitement when I'm learning about Judaism. I know Passover is a really important holiday. I'm invited to my first Passover Seder at the Lubavitch house. It was during finals. So I came hungry. I'm thinking 45 minutes. It was a lot. And that was one of my first kind of wake up moments to me for some of the beautiful ritual and also the differences in how different parts of Judaism worship. And also, I'm a really picky eater, so even when a lot of the food came out and there was gefilte fish and all of that, no thank you. But I persevered. I didn't let this turn me off. Since my children's father is Jewish, we decided to have a one-faith home. At this point, I was not Jewish, but we wanted to raise Trent and Sydney Jewish. I indulged that curiosity further to learn more. We did a direct Torah class, which Rabbi and I aren't sure if we ever communicated about, but she used to run this program at the JCC in Manhattan. And so I'm not sure. We could have been connected a long time ago. but it's basically a home-based Jewish program where you're led by a rabbinical student or a rabbi, and a lot of people are couples that are getting married, where one is Jewish, one is not, and I just learned so much in that intensive. We practiced holidays, we went to the rabbi shul, and I loved it, and this different conception of God that I could have than the person sitting next to me, and the different expression of my faith that I could have while still being a Jew. But I struggled with what type of Judaism I wanted to practice, because if I was going to do it, I wanted to do it right. So I did meet with different types of, different streams of rabbis, conservative, Orthodox, and Reform, and I just continued to wrestle with what God meant to me, and also where I would be accepted. I was married by a cantor in a beautiful rooftop wedding under a chuppah, and after welcoming Trent and Sydney, it came to be thinking about, yeah, they're waving at me, I hadn't finished my conversion. So now we are 7 years down the road. Trent and Sydney came like 10 and 13 years down the road of my Judaism, and I felt like I'm living as a Jew, and that's what matters. Trent and Sid went to Jewish preschool, and it's where I got to see them learn about a Jewish heritage. And I'll never forget Sydney holding up, it was grape juice, as we were doing our blessings during Shabbat, and leading her class in that Shabbat, their little Shabbat services at preschool. We even traveled with our little mini menorah when we went to my family's during the Christmas holidays, so that we could make sure that we had our place there as well. And then my children started attending Hebrew school. I became more active in Temple Beth-El. And I had to pause because I realized it could be important that I never finished the conversion process. Not in my heart, because I've always known I'm a Jew as I got to know more and more about it and committed to the faith. But I discussed this with Rabbi. She agreed, because as chairs, we also need to be Jewish. It's not just like, hey, anyone can walk off the street and become chairs. And it was something that we should work on together. And also, I wanted to be part of everything. My son was bar mitzvahed in June. That was coming up. I didn't want there to be any limitations on what I could do for, as part of that service. It just took a while. I was in the process of getting a master's, going between Boston and New York. My children came along relatively quickly, and we got divorced. But my faith and my communities they held my hand during that very difficult time. And they held me and my children. No one asked for a conversion certificate to make sure that I was Jewish. But our preschool community of moms, teachers, the families that loved us. My son was going to a Jewish day school in the city at the time. So many positive, strong Jewish role models for him, and places where we could all ask questions, because our world was changing a lot. Some fun stuff, though, is there's a lot of young adult Jewish communities in the city where I was allowed to express and worship as a single person, not just with my family, although that's an important part. And one more, that maybe would be hard to get out, but as I told Rabbi before my mikvah, I can feel very lost sometimes, but never when I'm in my community of Jews. So, after we made this decision to go forward with finishing my conversion and doing my mikvah, I had to prove that I actually knew things about Judaism. I had to review a little bit, but everything I learned just affirmed everything I went back through and talked about and thought about just affirmed that I really had been living by these traditions and rituals and rules for decades already and teaching them to my children. And it's hard to describe an experience like a mikvah. Rabbi Morit was there. You know, it's hard to find a word about what it means to feel that connection and that awe as you sing the Shema with someone who's guided you to this point. But family, my faith, being part of a long line of Jews before me are some of the reasons why I wanted to finish my conversion, make the world a better place by being a Jew, as a Jew, especially through my children, and knowing that my God is the world around us, the people that I love, and all the good that we do while we're here. And I love being able to tell my children that they can have their own conception of God. And there's a teaching that all Jews that were or ever will be were at Mount Sinai. And I wanted to be there with the church in Sydney. And that was very meaningful for me. My Hebrew name is Ruth Haya, and Ruth took a while to figure out that she needed to be a Jew. And Haya, you know, life with my family, being a mother, the most important part of my life. And I think, you know, as I said at the beginning, family and love are what Judaism at its base means to me. And thank you so much for letting me share my journey.
Shalom, 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 shalom.
For our teachers and our students, and the students of our students, we ask for peace and loving kindness, and let us say Amen. And for those who study Torah here and everywhere, may they be blessed with all they need, and let us say Amen.
Amen.
Page 385.
May we be remembered for love and compassion. Rabbi Shimon taught, do not regard yourself as worthless. Harachman, source of mercy, teach me the art of a compassionate gaze. Show me how to be patient and forgiving, kind and encouraging, loving and understanding, generous in spirit when faced with imperfection. Help me to extend love and compassion to my own imperfect soul. Help me to embrace these truths. I share the lot of all human beings. I am not alone in my failings. Whatever I have done, I am loved and valued by you, worthy of love, capable of goodness. Do not let me slip into self-loathing or despair. As I ask for your remembrance, I commit myself to remember. Self-compassion is not self-indulgence. It is not an excuse for bad behavior or an impediment to my growth. Harsh self-rebuke will not make me more gentle with others. On this holy day, I hold fast to these words of Torah. Be loving to your neighbor as you are to yourself.
Thank you. We're going to move now to page 432 in the Grand Aleinu. This last moment of acknowledging the oneness of the Creator and the sovereignty of the Creator. Page 432. I invite any of you who would like to do the full prostration to the floor to take your space along the aisles. Could you put with me, Kurt? Rise. Please rise.
Da, 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 da.
Atet Kedula Liotse Bereshit Shelo Asanu Kegoye Haratzot
Da 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 da
Samanu kemishbechot ha'adama shelo sam chelkenu kahem v'goralenu kechol hamona fadnachnu chorim ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא
We close the ark, please, and then when the ark is closed, we may be seated. We've reached Ne'ilah. Please be seated. We've reached the emotional apex of all of Yom Kippur. We've been wrung through the spiritual ringer. We're tired, we're hungry. Yet this is where we feel the lightness. This is where we taste atonement. This is where God's hand is offered. And this is where the promise of forgiveness resonates. In the quintessential Sephardi tradition, rather than it all being in the minor key and moaning, the piyut on page 614, is it on page? Yes, 614 lifts us with joy and hope in text and in musical spirit. So we are at Ne'ilah, the time to reach deep and aim high, and we sing it with all we've got. El Nora Alilah, page 614. We're going to sing it in English. So actually, it is not, I don't think the English is on page 14. I've got to take, no, it's in the booklet. So in the booklet, we're going to sing it in English on page, where is it?
614.
Back page, back page. El Nora Alilah, El Nora Alilah, Hamtzelanu Mechila, Bisha'at Ne'ilah, El Nora Alilah, El Nora Alilah, Hamtzelanu Mechila, Bisha'at Ne'ilah. Oh, awesome one of praise, oh, awesome one of might, grant us pardon at this hour as your gates are closed this night. El Nora Alilah, El Nora Alilah, Amtzelanu Mechila, Bisha'at Ne'ilah. Who are very few, raise our eyes to heaven's height, trembling, fearful in our prayer as our gates are closed this night. El Nora Alilah, El Nora Alilah, Amtzelanu Mechila, Bisha'at Ne'ilah. Pouring out our soul we pray, that the sentence you will write shall be one of pardon sin, as your gates are closed this night. El Nora Alilah, El Nora Alilah, Amtzelanu Mechila, Bisha'at Ne'ilah. Sing with us. Our refuge strong and sure, rescue us from dreadful plight, seal our destiny with joy as your gates are closed this night. El Nora Alilah, El Nora Alilah, Amtzelanu Mechila, b'sha'at ha'ne'ilah. Grant us favor, grant us grace, but those who deny our right and oppress you be the judge as your gates are closed this night. El Nor Alila, El Nor Alila, Amse Lanu Mechila, B'sha'at ha'ne'ilah. Generations of our kin, strong in faith, walked in your light. As of old, renew our days, as your gates are closed this night. El Nor Alila, El Nor Alila, Hamse Lanu Mechila, B'sha'at ha'ne'ilah. Oh, awesome one of praise, oh, awesome one of might, grant us pardon at this hour, as your gates are closed this night. El Nor Alila, El Nor Alila, Hamse Lanu Mechila, B'sha'at ha'ne'ilah. Page 620, we rise for the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitkadav, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah. Yamad Yivarach Yerutei, V'yamlich Malchutei, V'chayedechol Beit Yisrael, V'agala V'zman Karim, V'meru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevarach, Le'olam u'lamei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yitrama v'yitnasei, V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalav, Shemei d'Kudashah.
Rechu.
Le'ela u'leila mikol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Tamiram be'alma v'yimeru.
We remain standing for the Amidah on page 624. This is the last Amidah of these Yamim Noraim, the last of this Yom Kippur. Give it all you got.
Adonai sifatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotzeinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaKadosh, HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevei Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Ahava.
Amen.
Zochreinu l'chaim, Melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chetmenu b'sefer ha'chaim, lemancha Elohim chaim, Melech ozer Moshiach u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah.
Amen.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה אתה, רב להושיע, מוריד אתה. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל, ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך מימית ומחיי, ומצמיח ישועה. מי כמוך על הרחמים, זוכה יצוריו לחיים ברחמים, ונאמן נטל החיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני,
ברוך שמו,
מחיי הכל.
Amen.
I'm going to invite Beth Achenbach to the bima to read her interpretation of Ne'ilah. You may be seated.
The sun is beginning to set, its rays fading into orange and pink, spreading outward like arms of the horizon opening up to embrace the last hour of the day. It's not our time to waste anymore. Actual lives are on the line. One's gone now, another one's gone now. Souls are being handed over for inspection. We failed, we stumbled, we lashed out, reliving, unraveling as we stand, knocking on our hearts, trying to empty out the remnants of our mistakes. We sing the same words as millions of Jews, but appeal with various levels of urgency. Some just going through the motions, their thoughts somewhere else. Others revealing truths of the difficult year lived, trying to get their admissions through the ancient gates, well oiled by ancestral expiation and hinged on our faith. The arms of the horizon closing them as the light dissipates, each increment minutes lost, the last moments to try and let go, unzip our shells and bear who we really are, proving we are worthy of another chance to right ourselves, using that knowledge of all we have learned to try and fix our inherent brokenness. Better to have the gates closed shut with our hearts unburdened than have them locked with the darkness written on our souls, the judgments inked in time and sealed as the night heralds in a new day.
אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש וקדושים בכל יום הללוכה סלע ברוך אתה אדוני המלך הקדוש. Page 642.
Your promise is forever. God Most High, your promise is forever. Even when prayer is a struggle and you seem far away, the doors open wide for the repentant. Like the stoutness of oak trees, so is our stubbornness. Like thorns and thistles, so is our malice. And yet you say, return, rebellious children. Seek my face with tears and supplication. God Most High, your promise is forever. Impoverished, we knock on your door seeking kindness, lamenting our lot. Remember us. Recall us for a full life. May your ancient love come to us quickly. and you say, "Come to me with thanksgiving and songs." God Most High, your promise is forever.
And we ask God that God opens that gate for us. Our last al-chetz of this Yom Kippur, I invite us to rise and offer just these al-chetz in our own words. Al-chet shechatanu lefanecha.
Ve'al-chet shechatanu lefanecha.
Al-chet shechatanu lefanecha.
Ve'al-chet shechatanu lefanecha.
Al-chet shechatanu lefanecha.
Ve'al-chet shechatanu lefanecha.
Ve'al kulam Eloha slichot slach lanu mechalanu kaper lanu. Please be seated. I invite you to recall in the Yizkor book, lean on me. God, El Rachum V'Chanun, Holy Compassionate One, there for us whenever we call, whispering to us, call me, because we all need someone to lean on. Sometime in our lives, we all have pain. We all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow.
Lean on me
when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow your pride if I have things you need to borrow, for no one can fill those of your needs that you won't let it show. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. You just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you understand. We all need somebody to lean on. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Page 646, we call out the God of compassion. Adonai, Adonai. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun, Erech Apayim, V'Rav Chesed V'Emet, Notzer Chesed Le'alafim, Noseh Avon V'Pesha, V'Chata'ah V'Nakeh. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun, Erech Apayim, V'Rav Chesed V'Emet, Notzer Chesed Le'alafim, Noseh Avon V'Pesha, V'Chata'ah v'chataha v'nacheh. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'chanun, Erech Apayim v'rav chesed behemet, Notzer chesed la'alafim, Nosei avon v'fesha v'chataha v'nacheh. Moses prayed to the Eternal, as you have been faithful to this people ever since Egypt, please forgive their failings now in keeping with your boundless love. Let's read together on 646. Adonai, Adonai, God compassionate, gracious, endlessly patient, loving, and true, showing mercy to the 1,000th generation, forgiving evil, defiance, and wrongdoing, granting pardons. And God responded, I forgive, as you have asked. Ki anu amecha, page 650. Ki anu amecha, ve'ata Eloheinu, anu vanecha, ve'ata avinu,
anu avadecha, ve'ata Adonenu, anu kehalecha, ve'ata chelkeinu, anu nachalatecha, ve'ata goralenu, anu tzonecha, ve'ata roenu, anu chamecha, ve'ata notrenu, anu vulatecha, ve'ata yotrenu, anu rayatecha, ve'ata dodenu, anu zigulatecha, ve'ata kerovenu, anu amecha, ve'ata alkeinu, anu mamirecha, ve'ata mamirenu. Let's read together in the middle of 650. Our God and God of our ancestors, we are your people and you are our God. We are your children and you are our father, our mother. We are the people who serve you and you call us to be served. We are your community and you are our portion. We are your legacy and you are our purpose. We are your flock and you are our shepherd. We are your vineyard and you watch over us. We are your work and you are our maker. We are your beloved and you are our lover. We are your treasure and you are the one we cherish. We are your people and you reign over us. We offer you our words and you offer us yours. So forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. 652, we read together in the middle. We are insolent, but you are compassionate and gracious. We are stubborn and stiff-necked, but you are slow to anger. We persist in doing wrong, but you are the essence of mercy. Our days are a shadow passing by, but you are existence itself. Your years never ending. At the bottom, our God and God of all generations, may our prayers reach your presence. And when we turn to you, do not be indifferent. Adonai, we are arrogant and stubborn, claiming to be blameless and free of sin. In truth, we have stumbled and strayed. We have done wrong. Ashamnu, 653. Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu Dofi, Yanai, Evinu, Vehirshanu, Zadnu, Hamasnu, Tafalnu Sheker, Yura, Kizavnu, Latnu, Maradnu, Niatnu, Sararnu, Avinu.
Ashanu, Tzaranu, Kishinu Oref, Nanai, 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 Yananai, Nanai, Yananai, Nanai, Ashanu, Shichadnu, Tiavnu, Ta'inu, Titanu, Yanai, Nanai, Yananai, Nanai, Yananai, Nanai. Avinu Malkeinu, page 664. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Konenu v'anenu, ki ein banu masim, aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, ve'hoshienu, aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, ve'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu. Please remain standing as the ark is closed. Kaddish Shalem on page 668.
Yitzgadal ve'yitkadash
Shemei Rabba, Amen. Ve'alma divrach irutei, ve'amlich malchutei, v'chayachon ve'yom echon, u'chayei b'chol beit Yisrael, ba'ala u'visman kariv,
Ve'imeru,
ve'imeru amen.
Amen.
Yehi Shemei Rabba mivara, ve'alamu ve'almaya, yitbarach,
Yibarak,
v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yitaleh,
Yitalal, Shemei Dekudesha,
Shemei Dekudesha,
Brehu,
Le'ela u'le'ela min kol birchata
Shirata,
Yirata,
Tushbechata v'nechata damiran me'alma, Tushbechata v'nechemata damira me'alma,
Ve'imeru,
Ve'imeru amen.
Amen.
Titkabel tzilot dechon, uva'u ve'hon dechon ya Yisrael, kadosh v'hon devishmaya, devishmaya, devishmaya.
Ve'imeru,
Ve'imeru amen.
Amen.
Yehish lemerabba mivshemaya, v'chayim v'chayim aleinu, aleinu ve'yalko Yisrael, ve'yalko Yisrael, ve'yalko Yisrael.
Ve'imeru,
Ve'imeru amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom bimromav, u'yaseh shalom
Aleinu,
ve'yalko Yisrael.
Israel, Ve'imeru,
Ve'imeru amen.
Amen. Page 676. Eliyahu Hanavi. All the lights. Erwin, can you help get the rest of the lights? Thank you. Levia, Oz v'zimra beyada, Miriam tirkod itanu, Lighagdil zimrat olam, Miriam tirkod itanu, Litzaken et haolam. Bimera ve'yameinu, Hitevienu, El Mei HaYeshua, El Mei HaYeshua. Yai na 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 na. Nai nai na 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 nai 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 na 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 nai nai na 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 nai 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 na na nai nai na na nai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
Borei peri Borei peri hagafen, yai nai na 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 nai 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 na 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 nai nai na 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 nai 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 na nai 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 na nai nai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei meorei ha'esh, borei meorei ha'esh, yanai, yanai na 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 nai nai, yanai na 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 nai nai, na 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 nai 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 na nai 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 na na nai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamavdil ben kodesh lechol, ben or lechoshech, ben Israel la'amim, ben yom hashvi'i לששת ימי המעשה.
Baruch atah Adonai
המבדיל בין קודש לכל יננאי נאי נא 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 נאי 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 נא 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 נאי נאי נא 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 נאי 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 המבדיל בין קודש לכל חטאותינו ימחול זרענו וכספנו ירבה ירבה כחול וככוכבים בלילה זרענו וכספנו ירבה ירבה כחול וככוכבים בלילה. Repeat after me. Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
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 Adonai Hu HaElohim.
Adonai Hu Elohim.
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 Tkiya gedolah. Lishana haba, Lishana haba, Lishana haba b'Yerushalayim. Lishana haba, Lishana haba, Lishana haba b'Yerushalayim.
Haba, Lishana haba, Yerushalayim. Lishana
haba b'Yerushalayim. L'shana tova.